Skydio 2, not a Mavic killer? Hi everyone, I'm Mike from Mike Flies. I'm not normally one to jump in and create a video based on the hype of a new product, but I feel that the videos I've seen doing this for the Skydio 2, so far anyway, are missing some major points. So I decided to do some research and put my opinions into this video. There's no doubt the Skydio 2 is an amazing machine. Knowing the performance of their R1 that Skydio built previously, I know the Skydio 2 will live up to what Skydio 2 claims, and I can hardly wait to get mine. I'm on the pre-order list for November. I'm pretty excited about it. However, I am not so sure it's a Mavic 2 killer. I know a lot of people want to say that, including Skydio 2, but I'm not totally sure it replaces it. It has a lot of great features and it outshines the Mavic in a lot of ways, so don't get me wrong. But it doesn't do quite everything it does. My Mavic 2 is my work drone. 99% of all the photos and video I do is with my Mavic 2 Pro. Don't get me wrong, I will love and use the Skydio a bunch, maybe even more than my Mavic 2. However, it can't replace it for everything I use it for. Granted, I do some things that other people may not. Before I go over the comparisons of the two drones, let me talk a minute about obstacle avoidance. When the unique Typhoon H was released, everybody was very excited about the obstacle avoidance. And I was very excited for this aircraft as well. I was on the first order list for it also. But I was less interested in the obstacle avoidance and more interested in some of its other features. The whole time I owned my Typhoon H, I don't think I even turned on the obstacle avoidance other than maybe once or twice just to play with it. My thoughts at the time, of course this has been a few years, at the time, it's like I've been flying RC helicopters for over a decade. And I've gotten pretty good at not flying into things. With its obstacle avoidance turned on, my Mavic Pro that I had, you might have seen this video, actually flew into a small branch over the Tor Canal and crashed into the water while following me in my kayak. So obstacle avoidance isn't perfect with these crafts anyway. Now we know it's light years ahead with the Skydio 2. But my Mavic Air and my Mavic 2 obstacle avoidance sometimes interfere with me flying in tight areas, causing me to maneuver differently or even having to turn it off. Sometimes I'm shooting some real estate and I got to fly really tight into a backyard, through a tree, against a wall type of thing. And it can be kind of tough for some of that. Now, that said, what Skydio did with their R1 was a game changer. And the Skydio 2 is the next level for this obstacle avoidance technology. It's needed in this industry. It's huge these guys have brought that. This industry is really going to be able to go leaps forward in ways that we can't even imagine with such technologies, this better obstacle avoidance, the light years ahead of everybody else's that they bring to the table here. Not just for photos and video shoots, but for delivery drones, transport, taxi drones. At some point in time, robots of all types will wander the streets, sidewalks, and sky with us, depending on this type of technology to help them navigate the world we live in without running into things. So my hat's off to Skydio for changing the game in such a huge, major way. And the fact they've managed to bring it into a competing price point is just phenomenal. Hats off to them. They're great. Okay, on to the comparison. This is a comparison of the Skydio 2 and the Mavic 2. Based on the information we have now, I have not seen a Skydio 2 in person, and I've been flying a Mavic 2 since the first release of them. I will point out some of the features of the Mavic 2 first, but please stick around as I will point out features of the Skydio 2 next, and then I will talk a little bit about the app's differences from what I understand. The app's not released yet, so obviously I have, just like the aircraft, I'm speculating off of what I've got online and the conversations that I've managed to have with some of the people at Skydio. Quick disclaimer, as the Skydio 2 is not officially released at this time, October 4th, 2019, some of the information I have on it may be different in the future and even at time of release. We know they're always upgrading stuff through firmware and through the apps and all of this, so it's going to be released at one thing and it'll be, improved as time goes on. Okay, so without further ado, let's talk about the Mavic 2 pluses. These are areas where the Mavic 2 is better than the Skydio 2 that matter to me in my work, at least better in my opinion. One of them is the Mavic's 29 minutes of flight time is 20% more than the Skydio 2's 23 minutes. So to me, that's a pretty big deal. Now you can get away with I've got drones that fly shorter amount of times, and you can get away with that. But for the Mavic 2, I push it to its limits quite a bit actually. But then again, I do a lot of hyperlapse with it because that's kind of my hobby, is the sunsets of the hyperlapse. And so I like to push that to the full edge so I can get a nice sunset. In the Skydio 2 promotional video that they released, it appears that the front rotors can drag on the ground when it's landing. Good, bad? I don't know. I try not to let my rotors drag on anything. They do hit some weeds and stuff once in a while, some tall grass and that. But at 44 miles per hour, the Mavic 2 has a faster top speed than the Skydio 2's 36 miles per hour. It needs mention, though, that the Skydio 2 top speed is with full obstacle avoidance on, and the Mavic's top speed is with no obstacle avoidance. Mavic 2s have a service ceiling of 19,685 feet, and it's higher than the 15,000 feet of the Skydio 2. The Mavic 2 Pro's 1-inch sensor is arguably better than the smaller sensor in the Skydio 2. Many utility companies that we've done some inspection for and that require drones with a 1-inch sensor, would not let the Mavics come play until the Mavic 2 Pro came out. Then they would let you go do this work with the Mavic 2 Pro at the time. The Mavic 2 Pro's camera with the 1-inch sensor also offers a 10-bit color mode that you don't get from the smaller sensor on the Skydio 2. Okay, the Mavic 2 Zoom is basically the same size sensor as the Skydio 2, maybe not quite as evolved, and the process or the processing afterward is different. And the Skydio can actually shoot 60 frames at 4K, and neither of the Mavic 2s can do that. However, the Mavic 2 Zoom does have optical zoom capabilities on its smaller sensor that the Skydio 2 does not. Okay, so let's look at the Skydio 2 drone pluses. The Skydio has better customer service than DJI. Now, granted, all of this is subject to change and so forth, but I've been working with DJI since the DJI 1, which I still have in storage somewhere. I've had various unique drones, various DJI drones. I've built my own drones. I've flown some Blade helicopters and that. And the handful of emails I've swapped back and forth, and even on Twitter messages back and forth with Skydio, they've been very prompt and extremely courteous in their replies to me. And I can honestly say that I have not received that from the other companies that manufacture drones. So I'm kudos to them for that. I hope they can continue to keep their customer service going in this direction. I'm sure part of the reason their customer service is so great is that their customer service is in the same building as their engineering team, which can really help if somebody, I've worked tech support on the phone, so if somebody has a question or whatever and you can't answer it, it's nice that the engineering team may be accessible to you to answer the hard question that you want to get back to the customer with. They're also across the street, according to their website, from the manufacturing plant. So with everything nice and close, right in the same area, that really got to help, I think, on the customer service side. The next thing that's a big plus, Skydio 2 drone, and this is probably where I should have led with, but anyway, it's better obstacle avoidance, better obstacle avoidance, better obstacle avoidance. You probably can't get away with saying that enough times. They've really, really, really raised the bar with this. I'm sure if you're watching this, you know what sets this drone miles apart from the other drones. It's its ability to fly on its own without crashing. And the reason it can do this is it's far, far superior obstacle avoidance to anything else in the market, especially in its price range. Their obstacle avoidance not only blows the Mavics out of the water, it jumps light years ahead of it. It's way more advanced than anything the Mavic 2 has. The Skydio 2 max wind resistance is 25 miles per hour, which is slightly higher than the Mavic 2's 23 miles per hour. Interestingly enough, I've always thought the Mavic 2's wind capability was 35 miles per hour, but when I went to double check my facts for this video to make sure I was accurate, the DJI website claims 29 to 38 kilometers, which is 38 kilometers is about 23 miles an hour. So, yeah, I guess I've been flying it in too high of winds. Shh, don't tell anybody. The Skydio 2 has no NFZs, no-fly zone geofencing. Most of the time, the DJI geofenced no-fly zones don't bother me much. I generally unlock them if needed when I apply for the airspace authorizations. And really these days, they're only really locked at the approach and departure ends of an airport, and you're going to really need an authorization to fly in most of those areas anyway. Skydio 2 is made in the USA, which is really great for me. May not mean as much to some other people, but regardless of how you feel about this, the Department of Defense scare, Chinese drones data mining the U.S., has caused some utility companies and some other companies, pipelines and stuff, to require you to have an American-made drone before they will contract you to do any inspection or work for them. The Skydio 2 can be flown with your phone, its controller, or its beacon. I love the wizard that my unique Typhoon H came with, actually. It was pretty handy for a lot of little neat things. When the controller is just too bulky to drag around, like if you're hiking or whatever and you want something to follow you along and you don't have somebody to operate the camera for you, or you want to be in the shot, very handy. Or even on the bicycle, dare I say such things. To me, it seems like the beacon is going to be a great tool. It looks even more simple to use and better than what the wizard was for the unique. And I'm very excited to play with the beacon with my Skydio 2 when it arrives. Now for apps. The Skydio 2 app has not been released yet, so it's hard and maybe a bit unfair to compare it to a DJI Go 4 app. However, I have exchanged some emails with Skydio, and it seems the first release version of the app won't have, at least the first release version of the apps, won't have some of the things I love about DJI's app. And they won't comment as to whether it will in future versions, but all of this is possible with an upgrade. So here's the list of the features the DJI app has that Skydio 2 app does not, that I find useful for what I do. First and foremost is live broadcasting. I only do it a couple times a year, but I do this Facebook Live broadcasting thing, and I'm going to probably be doing more of that in the future. And you can actually do it with the DJI drone. It works really slick because it records the information. It'll use a mic off my iPad, so I can plug in an actual mic to it or use the mic on the iPad and fly the drone, be doing the shot, and I can narrate the shot, or somebody else can narrate the shot. And it'll broadcast to Facebook Live, YouTube Live. You can set up pretty much any live channel you want through the DJI Go 4 app. Skydio 2 app does not do any live broadcasting at this time. Hyperlapse, time-lapse. I fell in love playing with time-lapse several years ago with the GoPro, and I really like this feature a lot with the Mavic 2 Pro, and I do it more for fun. It's not a work thing. But I like to get the sunset. Sometimes I like to get some traffic. I just like to play with the hyperlapse, the time-lapse capability of the Mavic 2 Pro that's built into the DJI Go 4 app. It's awesome. And then something I don't use too much, but I've seen some other people do some really cool shots with it, and I have played with it some, is the Hyperlight, the low light shooting capabilities with the DJI Go 4 app. So, at any rate, if anybody's watching this from Skydio 2, I hope you at least add the live broadcast in some sort of time-lapse, hyperlapse function in the future. Please. If you did that, then I might have to park my Mavic 2. But for now, I'll keep using it, especially for long flight times where I do the time-lapse, hyperlapse. It's also too soon to know what accessories Skydio will offer for this drone. My favorite DJI accessories for the Mavic Pro, the Mavic Air, and the Mavic 2 has been the Fly More kit. It's especially the multi-battery charger block and the battery to USB adapter, which when I got my first one with my Mavic Pro, I didn't think that battery to USB adapter was that hot of a ticket, but I've ended up using that more than I ever thought I would. If I'm going to dinner with a wife and the battery is about dead, I'll actually stick my Mavic Air battery in my pocket and plug my phone into it, just to charge the phone up while we're going to wherever it is we're going. It works really well. And it goes without saying that a minimum number of batteries for me is 3, and in my eyes 6 is actually better. So it's nice if you have a block, even if it doesn't charge them all 4 at the same time like DJI does. It charges one, so let's charge, and it charges the next, let's charge, and it charges the next. It saves me a lot of having to remember to get up and swap batteries in the middle of the night. If I can just plug them all in and know that when I wake up, several hours later, all 4 batteries will be charged. So I hope Skydio releases some sort of battery bank charger for it that'll charge multiple batteries. In summary, I'm not trying to imply that either drone is better. All I'm saying is that each drone brings its own unique talents to the table, and if you can only have one, choose the one whose features best match your mission, as with any aircraft. You buy it to meet your mission. As for me, I have a job for each of them, and I will use both into the foreseeable future. I'm very, very excited to get my Skydio 2. I can hardly wait. Thanks for watching. Please leave comments, thoughts, and views below, but be nice. And of course, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And fly safe, have fun. See you later.